Okay, so hi everybody, for those who I haven't met before, my name is Barry MacMahon and I'm the BI lead department for Microsoft in Ireland. I'd like to thank actually Bob. That's actually one of the most impressive kind of 20-25 minute demos on both sides across the visitors that I've seen. You know, it really is impressive. In terms of, that's not the first slide, Bob. In terms of just building off what we want to show you, this is about the future, so you know what's happened and where we're going. So before I actually start off with that, I'm just going to give you a view of where we've come from over the last kind of 10 years. Because you know we've got this strategy which we've been following very quickly, or very carefully, which is really about helping BI, stopping it being something called BI, which people go and do in a specific space, and in particular have particular skill sets for, and bring it to a place where any individual within an organization works with information the way they normally would, without ever stopping and thinking and breaking through some of the barriers we have today, which you know where we are. So if you look at where we've come over the last number of years, we started off in 2000, but really what I'd like to show is the acceleration over the last kind of couple of years into our information platform, as we call it. We've built out more capabilities around that. So we did a lot of what Bob's just shown was a major release we did last year around SQL 2008 or 2, and that was really centered around self-service BI and trying to enable, you know, what we think about BI when we look at investments. We think there's investments we need to make to give IT teams within organizations the ability to build information platforms and manage those information platforms. And then there's investments on the other side that we make in order to help ordinary end users within an organization to work with that data and bring it there. So the power pivot and kind of the personal self-service BI was a big part that we brought last time. And it was quite innovative at the time. In memory BI, there are other players within that market. But it's an important part when you think about BI. What we say to people is think about the BI requirements for your whole organization, and make sure that you're picking a platform which can today address what you need, and also obviously has the roadmap kind of going forward into it. So self-service BI, in memory BI is important, but it's just one component. You need self-service and you need the corporate. When we look at where we've been coming from over the last couple of years, from in 2008, and then this release was actually 2010. What we've been doing is building more and more into the information platform on both sides to try and break through this barrier about how people think about how they work with and consume BI. And what we've seen today with Bob, what we've seen around Power Pivot and some of the other aspects, which we didn't get into in enormous detail, is for power users. Okay, what I mean by that is that people within an organization who can work with, understand pivot tables, work with concepts like Bob, went through and he pulled up information which didn't really make an awful lot of sense to people unless they were actually already power users, about dimensions and facts and that kind of thing. And our own expertise, or rather our own research, is about 20 to 30% of people in an organization are comfortable with pivot tables. That's growing actually as the generations behind us come through. We're probably more IT literate, have been working with things like Excel since they were at school. But there's still this barrier between people who are kind of pivot table literate and people who are. Let's just move forward this way. So I'm going to just bring you through how we're going to, our developments or our investments around helping people build BI, which is the tooling which is around that. Importantly, around the IT side, as in the investments we make around the IT side to help people get this information in and put it in a usable, presentable way. But most importantly, obviously, none of this serves any purpose without the people in the middle, which are the end users' abilities to make sense of it and work with it more and more and more, and work with it in kind of richer ways.
And you build the account. There it is.
Sorry?
It'd be great only for the users.
Yeah, exactly, it'd be great only for the user. I was actually with somebody the other day, and you don't hear it that much anymore, but I was with somebody in a large organization, and I had a comment which I had heard in a couple of years, and he said, Jesus, he said, don't show that to the end users, because they'll want it. And that's when I realized I was actually in the wrong meeting. Genuinely. And the other part which when we look at, I'll talk a little bit about cloud and Azure, and there's a lot of kind of talk around cloud, and it's easy because we're so caught up in the IT industry to think that it's hype. But the reality of what's happening in that space and the pace of what's happening and the difference it'll make to ordinary organizations, the impact it'll have in a kind of a 2 to 3 year period is genuinely kind of game changing around it. We've just come out of a major release a year ago, but we're actually going into another major release cycle at the moment. So the pace of innovation and what's coming to market in these spaces is really accelerating. So we released last May, so about 8 to 10 months ago, we released SQL 2008 or 2. We're actually going to have another release within the next 12 months. Don't quote me on that. but that's the kind of time frame we're hitting. So within a 2-year window, and what you're seeing is the actual rate of innovation coming to market is getting shorter and shorter, and that goes across the information worker platform in terms of SharePoint and Office, and what we do in the back end in terms of the tools and technologies to support those and to use those to leverage BI value through. So that's coming more and more and more. And we're investing, our major investments come across, as I said, the platform at the back end. So at the back end, nowadays, people, what they can do at a lower cost, because if you want to get BI out and used by everybody, what you've got to have is, it's got to be easy to use at the front end. I think we've made a lot of advances in that along the area Bob had, but we're not there yet. I'll show you where we plan to, our next step in getting there. And you've also got to make a lot of investments around driving down the cost of doing this, because BI traditionally has been expensive, not just for an end user point of view, and not much adopted because it wasn't particularly useful, but also at the back end, it involved extremely high cost investments in technologies and tools for data quality, for data warehouses and that. So you need to drive down that cost as well, because we believe, and I think everybody believes, that everybody in an organization does benefit from the ability to get access to the information. They have rights to access it within a secure context, and to be able to work with that within their context. And there's nobody away from the individual who's really going to understand how they can play with that data and get insight from them other than themselves. And that's why this whole concept of self-service, because it's only when you ask the first question and you get the answer to it that you know what the second and third and fourth questions are that you want to go for. So this concept of continual work around it is extremely important. So we're making a lot of investments around the back-end platform. SQL itself is scaled up to about 30 terabytes at this stage just on its own. We released Parallel Data Warehouse actually just 2 weeks ago, which is a commodity-based, high-end data warehouse solution, which could go head-to-head in scenarios with things like Exadata from Oracle and Teradata. There's not many requirements for that size of data set because the SQL itself can scale extremely largely. So there's enormous investments around that side. And the developer productivity piece, I'm not going to focus on much today. We're really talking about end users, we're going to focus around that, but there's additional parts around that, how it integrates that, how it leverages the cloud. And then there's the end user piece. And I'm going to show you where we see the next generation of end users, which we'll be bringing to market in the next period of time around that. So that's important. And when we think about end users, I said what we're really trying to do is get beyond that kind of 30% of power users and get away from the idea that this BI is just something which kind of happens, either specialist users or IT do it, to a point that from what Bob showed in terms of Power Pivot and the other parts in terms of the analytics, it's extremely powerful in a corporate sense, but it still is this idea that there's people who build it, either power users or IT, and then people who consume it. And we're trying to break through that so that everybody is capable of working with the information and deriving the value from it. And when you look at that, and I'm kind of starting at the bottom and working at the certain things that you need, which we're bringing in the next release. SQL Denali is the internal code name, probably because SQL 2011. We brought in this, our master data services, which is an important way to help organizations to start to structure their data internally. That came in the last version. What's coming in the next version in Denali is something called data quality services, and it actually addresses the issue around the question which was asked before. So what we're building into the platform is an extremely complex, sophisticated data quality engine, which will enable you to do a lot of automated data cleansing, data quality, at the same time do things like very carefully manage data lineage. So when we see some information somewhere, or somebody's got it in a report, we can quickly see and track back. If it looks off, is it really the right information we can work back through in terms of data lineage? So that's extremely important, and integration services around that, data cleansing, data quality, that's coming into kind of base level. When we look into the analytics part, if we're going to start getting end users to use this in a better way, what we have to be able to do is produce or present the actual information in the organization in a way that makes sense to everybody in the organization. So things like dimensions and facts, etc., which Bob did a good job of showing how you could build something up with a power pivot. But you're still looking at, when you looked at the right-hand side of that pivot table, when he was looking to pull out the field, it wasn't very meaningful what any of those things were for any users who were outside of the kind of the BI world and that. So within that, it's extremely important, and we're bringing in a semantic model. So semantic model just simply means that business terms will describe all of the data within the organization, across all of the organization. So when anybody sees something, they'll see, instead of saying dim sales, fact sales, all of that, they'll see sales by week, by month. And I'll show that in a second in terms of that. But if we're going to do that across the whole data platform, and again, you know, all of this is geared towards making it even more user. And then on the front end, in terms of end user capability, I said about 30% of people know how to use pivot tables, and that's great. And what Bob showed us how we create things in pivot tables, power pivot, and people can then consume them with slicers. But now when you get to that person who's actually sitting there in front of a view and they're clicking in the parts, they're still constrained by what was originally designed into the report that they're looking at. But what you're looking to do is get the 70% of people, you know, who aren't literate around pivot tables and enable them to do that. And what we're bringing to market around that side is something called, today it's called Project Crescent. This is, would that just start, Bob, automatically? Thank you.
People now.
Thank you. So, what Project Crescent is about is enabling people in a kind of a thin client way within their organization just to go. And actually, you can see here, there's all of the different kind of key things. This is an online movie. It's an organization which sells online movie tickets, and they're analyzing actual different parts of the sources. So this is thin client. So just through a browser, they're going into the organization and looking at the information platform provided by the IT organization within it. And what they're doing is just pulling that information. They're pulling the actual objects. I don't like to use the word objects because it's not a very user-friendly kind of term. Instead of actually before where they would go into something like Excel or whatever and start to build connections to the back end and then use that to pull out. In this case, when they are interested in something, they just pull it over onto whatever we're going to call a palette or whatever. But what happens is that gets brought over as a complete object. So in this case, you can see it's a film, it's got ratings, it's got directors, it's got numbers of, it's got sales, etc., in it. But what they're working with at this level isn't abstract database concepts with rows and tables. They're actually working with dynamic information as they work their way through. And as they look after each of the different kind of information points or access that they're interested in looking at in the organization, again, you know, it says download. It doesn't say /download internet 7. So this concept of not just a semantic level, but when they actually pick on the download itself, what it brings out is the download. But the information which appears over here is instantly live and drillable in the thin client version. Okay? Across the top, it looks like Office. It looks like Excel 2010. So this concept of the ribbon, which we brought in 2007, has appeared extremely strongly in SharePoint, in the latest release, and obviously it's embedded in Office, and it goes more and more through. It's extremely important because end users shouldn't know, or should never need to think about what application am I in now. Am I in SharePoint? Am I in Excel? Am I leaving to go into my CRM or my financials or my mail application? It should just be the information flowing around them as they go. And what's happening in this case is, even though he's actually working in a thin client environment, he's getting a ribbon across the top and all of the various tools, which are exactly the same as his experiences would be within Excel. Now when you start to look at this kind of capability, you can start to do some very, very interesting things. So when you've got this kind of capability with end users, we're introducing this concept of kind of storyboards, because data changes in real time, and we had a question around that before. So why shouldn't we enable people, and again, just built one out here, to actually have animated graphs about how our data has changed over periods of time. And this again, a couple of clicks of a button just through this kind of front end part, and he's able to animate in time, a time series of how the data has actually developed over time, to see whether that gives them more information as you're working your way through. And as you can see here, the sales of different categories of films over time. Comedy was doing very well, and then suddenly from nowhere, science fiction shot up last year, because they call that the Avatar effect, I believe, in the movie industry, because the science fiction hadn't been anywhere for a while as they worked their way through. So the end user just can actually move the information around and start looking at different views. But now, if you just move it forward a little bit, Bob, I don't know if you've seen this before. I want to just get towards the end of the video. Just the last part is where you want to actually now keep on going there, about there. Okay. What's happening now is the end users decided they've built out different views and different storyboards. This concept of storyboarding information as you work your way through. By taking just different snapshots of different screens they've built at different stages, which helps them illustrate and develop their point.